has kept me moving, and that's where the exploring of different industry has helped me as well over the period.
Yes, sir. So we're here to listen to the most motivational speak ever I have ever listened. Like this is a very big opportunity for us all to listen to such big human being. Like it's really, I thank Rohit for bringing such full wonderful speaker to our webinar. Welcome, sir. So I'd like to listen first. How was this journey, sir? Like
Okay.
how was it possible?
Okay, let me take you through some of my learnings and the experiences. Maybe I think so that should give you guys insight about how I took it through and what are the key things which we can, as well as we move on, and some of the key activities or the core topics which we may have to touch base as we work. Okay, so again, thank you, Fortis, for giving me an opportunity to share some of my experiences. Now, today, I'm going to share some of my experience. Again, I'm not going to tell you guys how to do, but I can only say from some of my experiences how I managed. And again, as you have already said, there are several projects which have delivered in across the industries. However, today I'm here to speak about a specific projects which I have delivered through my work in Rolls-Royce, where as a project, it was setting up a facility to basically with two key objectives. One, to the project itself was to set up a manufacturing facility. The second one being the most important thing, to establish capability in India. And when I say establish capability, this is all segments, right from technical, the process capabilities, and the operations capability. Now, all these three are supposed to be set. Now, one of the learning or the know-how which I could share through my today's session is about the essence of planning and supply chain readiness during the project execution and preparing for operations as we start executing the project. Now, during this course of the session, you will also I'll try to give you an awareness of the wide range of subjects and topics which you can come across, and you can also try selecting those topics for your subject, getting expert into it basically, and or even making a career out of it. And specific to the aerospace and manufacturing is something which I will touch base more. I'll also at the end try giving you some practical tips for career building, again purely from my experience. And it's not very bookish in nature, the whole experience, because I'm pretty old school boy, where I've more of like hands-on work which I've done, and that's what I'm going to keep it in front of you guys. Now, let me move on. The source of sharing, basically, as I said, the source of sharing for today's session would be from the three greenfield projects which I have delivered for Rolls-Royce in India to set up a capability. Now, the first one being the greenfield projects, where I was given almost a small forest sort of area with about 900 plus trees to convert that into a world-class manufacturing facility. Now, why do I say world-class manufacturing facility? This facility is first of its kind in India, where we have some special processes which we had to establish that capability in India, which we never had in the past. This was delivered in the year around 2011 and 12. and that was the first of its kind in India for aerospace. And the second one was a dumping yard, which was given to me, and which I had to convert into a export facility. Now, this facility was in Mumbai, again for one of the Rolls-Royce supplier. The third one was an expansion of an existing facility. This we had to again build from the scratch, right from the foundation. This was in Hyderabad, where today it's been having a two new fully incorporated manufacturing facility. Now, all these three facility was had two main objectives, as I said. One, to establish a manufacturing facility by itself, and also input a lot of capability in it, be it technical, be it process, or even the operation side of it. Now, the, the let me move to the next one. Getting back to the projects now, as a projects, the key thing is the project manager. I, being the project manager, I had to lead this project and the program all along. Now, as a project manager, a couple of things which we need to have in mind is you are the epicenter. You are the person who's going to control the whole project, being in middle of it, and you are supposed to be managing entire activities right from the center. That is where you are also called as spock, or single point of contact, for everything and anything what is going to happen in this particular project. As a project manager, you are also supposed to manage various and stakeholders. Now, these stakeholders are can be physically around you or can be far off, but you need to still manage them. That's one of the key activities which you will have to do being a project manager. Now, being a project manager is not only being managing project, you will also wear various hats during the project. You may be also working as a coordinator, you will be also working as a facilitator, you will be also doing some of its activities. Now, you can be the doer within the project as well, because you might also pick some of these elements and start doing them within this project. Now, so you as a project manager become the most important thing within the project, and you as a project manager should know your responsibility and accountability. Now, as a first step, when you take any project, my tip would be to start with a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis will help you to understand what should be and what could be your steps which you need to take based on the strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats around this project. Because there could be various aspects which could change the mode of a project. So you need to be better prepared with having this analysis around you. Now, when I say you need to start with the analysis, it doesn't mean that you do it at the beginning and leave it away during the period. You may have to revisit this once in a while during the entire phase of the project, which will also keep updating because things keeps changing, things keep evolving. So the key thing is to keep updating your the SWOT analysis. Then the most important thing, the team. Many times what happens when in a project, there are several opportunities or time in a project where not every time you will be having an opportunity to choose your team as a project manager. Because when you're working in a large organization, for example, wherever I have worked in all my career, I did not get an opportunity to choose my team, because it would have been a most easiest thing, isn't it, right, for me to select my team and whom I am good with, and who where I know the strengths and weakness. But it's not always the case. As an organization, you will be given a team basically to manage them. Now, whether you get to choose or whether you are given a team, you as a project manager have to ensure everybody is working together. And it is your primary responsibility to ensure that the team is driving the project in a very right way, so that there are no surprises and there are no issues when we are managing this project. Now, once you have a SWOT analysis around you, once you have a team, what's the next thing? What's the project all about? That's where the business plans comes into picture. Now, many times, again, in this particular case as well, specifically when I'm talking the project execution bit of it, you may not be party to the business plan, because generally business plan gets done at a very top level, at a very different level, at an exact level, where there are sales and the strategy team involved. You may not be involved in that business plan. Now, as a first key responsibility, I would encourage as a project manager for you to understand the business plan by itself, basically, which will help you to understand what is the whole project about, what are the deliverables of this project, what was the thought behind the project, what was the strategy thought by the team. Because many a times we fail to see that big picture, because as a project manager you need to be aware of the big picture and not just focus on the project by itself, because the scope can be given to you in pockets and the small packets. So instead, if you try to understand the business plan, you will understand the whole objective, and you can have your own scope which can be derived from this particular business plan, and can be able to cross verify with the scope what is given to you, which will also help you to give better results from the project. Now, the once you know the business plan, the key, the element then is the communication. Now, as a project manager, I can tell you the communication is the key element. It's the most important soft skill which you need to adapt, which you need to have within you as a project manager. If it is not in the beginning, but I would strongly recommend you to start developing that, because if your dream is to become a project manager, the communication is the key, because that is what will make everybody realize whether you are in control of it, whether you need to be aware of you, whether you are aware of it, and whether you are able to communicate that properly to the team. Now, communication doesn't mean only I am saying everything what I want to say, I am sharing everything what I want to share. It's not about that. Do you understand? Does the opposite person understand what you have said? Did the opposite person really understand the communication or the message which you wanted to give? Unless the message is not very clearly delivered and understood by the opposite, the communication is not completed. So you as a project manager should ensure that is happening across the project and during the various phases of the project. Now, a tip here would be a concept called echoing that could be utilized or used during your communication across the project, which will help you to understand when you tell the opposite person to repeat back what the person has understood. It will help you to understand whether the opposite person exactly got the point which you wanted to tell. If not, you can always have a correction and manage that communication. Now, I'll give you another tip. When you want to do a proper communication, have a communication plan, have a governance around it. Now, when I say governance structure, when you have a standard governance, I would also encourage you to have a standard governance across the levels in the project. Many times we tend to do a mistake where we feel I am talking to my team, I am telling everything to my team, and I feel that my communication is all clear. But what I don't may not know is, am I communicating everything to different levels, and different levels may understand different way. So you will need to understand in different levels who is supposed to be in that governance or the meetings, and whether you have communicated everything in line with their expectation, and did all of them understand. Now, this is something which you can adapt as in the project management. Then the most important one more element, which is the interdependency. Now, in a project, what happens generally, there are several things which happen all together, and also you are managing various people, various function, various team. Now, every function may have their own interest, and you have your own interest, but you as a project manager should be ensuring everybody should be delivering to the project. There could be a lot of interdependent activities which may be required to pull together. Now, you as a project manager should be able to do that very in a balanced way. Now, these are some of the key things which I wanted to share from a project point of view. Now, the last but not the least, the risk. The risk will be there across the project during the entire project phase. Now, as a project manager, it is the primary responsibility of the project manager to have risk sessions. Why I say risk sessions? Many times, one of the mistake what we do is we only create a risk register at the beginning of the project, and we talk about it, and we have all the mitigation plan. Then we do not open that risk file at all during the end phase of the project. Now, as a practice, you should have regular risk review sessions, which will help you to understand whether the mitigation, whichever you had thought about it or actioned it, whether it worked. Is there any new risk which has come up after some time during the execution of these projects? So you'll have to be very clear, and you'll have to be over and above that. So these are some of the things which I wanted to share from a project's point of view. Now, let's move to the most important thing, the project plan. Now, I will not be able to today share how to do a project plan, because that itself is a very vast subject. Now, one of the key thing what you need to have there in your mind is the business plan will not have the project plan. It will only say how to get there, and when you're supposed to get there, and who will be there around it, and all that. Now, it doesn't mean that you have a plan. You'll have to still convert that business plan into a project plan. Now, within the project plan, there could be several things. One of the tips from my experience, which I can tell you, is when you are doing a very large scale project, it is always good to have different levels of planning. At least some three levels is what I would recommend strongly: L1, L2, and L3. L1 could be at a very top level, which is in line with the business case, where you can use those plans to update the top leadership or the executives of the organization. So that, because bear in mind, the top leaders generally has very few minutes with you, and in that few minutes, if you want to talk about the entire project, you cannot have a detailed plan in front of them and try talking to them. Instead, I would say, recommend have a very top level. That doesn't mean that you can run the project with that. You should also have an L2 plan. Why? Because that will help you to cascade further some of these activities into different functions and different elements, and some of the elements which you need to also cover: who would be involved, how the task would be done, what time it will take. Now, once that is done, you should then have an L3 plan. Now, in that L3 plan, I've given here an example specific to the manufacturing setup, where it may mean everything right from recruitment, interior decoration, factory building, quality, method proving. There's n number of things which you may have to do. But if you do not have a very detailed level of planning, you may not be successful. Now, how big or how small or how detailed should the plan be? It all depends what you are doing. Are you doing a standalone project? Are you doing a standalone program? Are you part of the portfolio manager? Or are you doing a portfolio entire thing itself? Now, the project which I have done, which or I'm referring to in this particular session, the 3 Greenfield project, had its own element. For example, I was doing a project in India, doesn't mean that I am supposed to deliver everything only in India. I'm setting up a facility here. I'm supposed to set a capability in India, but bear in mind, there is also one more facility back in Europe or US, which is also coming down. Basically, we need to have a plan which also talks to that particular supply chain. we need to also consider the portfolio, because at a very different level, I am talking about parts, I am talking about commodity. There are various strategy which is inbuilt within this program and approach, because the host, basically in this particular case which I am referring to, is an organization where they may have different strategies. Now we need to be in middle of that, and you need to be, as a project manager, you should be able to also coordinate with the other project managers who is managing the other side of it. It's not about only your project. Your project cannot be successful unless you have coordinated with the other elements which are interdependent on your project. So these are some of the key things which you need to be aware of. Now, one of the mistake which many of us do is create a project plan in the beginning of the project, where we are all pumped up, we know exactly we need to do, we have considered all those elements, we do a plan, and then we start driving that, we start focusing on the activities, then the plan seems to be kept there itself. Do not hesitate to update the plan. That's one of the key thing. Now when I say update, it is not about only telling, oh, did I finish this activity, is the activity going on time or not. That's not the only update which has to happen. You need to also see if there is any new activities getting added, because bear in mind, the project plan can evolve as you progress. It keeps evolving. I can give you a classic example where I started a project in the initial days. It had about 300 lines. Believe me, within 2 to 3 months, the same project had 2,000 to 3,000 lines of activities. That is how you need to consider. It is okay to be that way, and that is how the project can be successful. So be ready to adapt to the evolving of the project plan. Now this was a little bit of story on the project side of it, or the activities which we need to do. Now, as I said in the beginning of my session, this is not about only delivering or making or creating a manufacturing facility. This is about creating capability. Now, when I say capability, the project within itself has a capability which we need to also set up. Now, that is where some of the key things, one of the core activity is the supply chain process, which is part of the projects which I had to deliver. Now, if you see the supply chain process, it is a very wide subject, and it is a very vast element. There are so many things which we can talk about. It can be a raw material, supplier, manufacturing, distribution, retail. These are some of the key things at a very top level. However, today I'm going to just touch base only on the manufacturing side of the supply chain. I am not here to talk about the entire supply chain, but I'm trying to bring focus purely on the manufacturing side of it. Now, just to give you people an understanding how big the aircraft industry is. Now, this is a typical supply chain in an aircraft. If you see here, 4 continents will be involved, 12 different countries, 5,400 factories, 5 lakh people, 80 crore parts go into this, 2 lakh crore spend happens. Now, this is a typical aircraft industry supply chain. I hope you can imagine how big or it is, or how complex it is at an aircraft. Now, from the industry and the company where I belong to is one part of it. Now, if you see Rolls-Royce as an example, if I take, we have 30 to 40,000 parts in a Rolls-Royce engine. Now, 70 to 80% of these parts come from a supply chain. Only 20% is what I manufacture inside my shop floor. Now, to manage the 70 to 80% of the share, I have close to 800 to 900 suppliers globally positioned for them to deliver these parts. Now, my engine goes into 35 different commercial aircrafts. As we speak today, there is about 14 to 15,000 engines in service, which is flying. That is how the scale of the supply chain is. Now, when I'm talking about one particular element, and within that element, how the number of parts and how complex the supply chain is about, is what I just want to bring your notice. Now, today I'm not going to talk about 30 to 40,000 parts, nor I'm going to talk about 70 to 80%. What I'm here to talk about with you is how complex it is even to set a supply chain for one part or even 10 parts. That is what I will try to share some of the insight. Now, supply chain in operations or a manufacturing sector, as I said, is not only simple, as you have already seen the examples which I have given. Now, if you see, we need to first assess the complexity. Why should we assess the complexity? It is for us to understand what level of process is required. Because if you see, the complexity at an aircraft point can be different. The complexity at a Rolls-Royce point can be different, but the complexity at a supplier can be different. Now, each organization or each company or where it all depends, where do you sit in the entire supply line? And based on that, the complexity could vary. Now, it also will also help you to do the controls or the what level of gates you need to have during these setup, or where you're debating or where you're discussing these things during the project execution. Now, one of the key thing is parts movement. I'm going to start with a very simple thing. You have a part in your shop floor. You need to produce a part. You need to understand where all this part movement will happen. Now, this part movement can happen across the globe, or can happen within the country, or can happen within your shop floor. Now, it depends what is the capability which you are setting up. That it is purely dependent on that. Now, the part, I have done a particular part where it moves thousands of kilometers. I have mapped a particular part which travels 5,000 miles before it becomes a finished part and gets delivered into Rolls-Royce. Now, there are some parts which is done within the shop floor, within one particular roof itself. Now, it can vary. You need to have a different process, different controls for each way a part. Now, this can also be defined which commodity you are catering into, which particular activities you are doing, how much controls you have in these things, how much is your scope of the work within that part which you are manufacturing. There are various things which will come into picture. So the first thing within the projects, when you are doing a supply chain mapping, you have to get into the details, because you have to understand your part movement. You have to involve different functions when you are trying to do this. Now, the key thing is the special process within aerospace industry. In India, we do not have a very vast supply special processes. Right now, India as a country, we are developing a lot of special processes to cater into the aerospace or the aircraft industry, and it is fast growing, I can say. And as we start putting more and more capability, you will see the supply chain would be within India. Right now, I still see some of the parts going out of India and then coming back. Now, if you see, as I'm talking, I'm also talking about parts going in and out from the factory. Now, what does that mean? Now, you need to also understand what is the logistics arrangement you need, both for internal and for external. What is the packing you need to do? Because the quality of the part needs to be maintained during the entire course of the process. Now, these are some of the things which you will have to parallelly run as you are building the project. Let me remind you, it's not about you build the factory and then start doing this. Sorry, that is not going to happen, because building the factory itself is going to take about 12 to 18 months. With my experience, that's the fastest what we can do with all the various activities which is there. But as you are doing that, you need to also focus on the future, because you cannot set a facility and then start doing this, because there are overheads, there are operations, there is a lot of challenges there. So you'll have to do all these things parallelly. Now, what I was talking was about the one of the part movement. Now, one of the key thing within manufacturing is to analyze the lead time of a part. Now, for that, again, as I said, one of the part could be there, but you need to also understand how the parts are going to move. There will be various parts which is moving together, where there are various commodities which is moving together, and there are so many people and sub tires and the raw material guys. There are so many things involved. Now, when you put all these two things together, you should be able to understand what's your lead time of these parts, because you need to start defining these things for you to understand what does your supply chain look like. You should be able to tell your customer what will be your time for you to deliver a part when you set the operations. Now, you might even also have a target from your management or a leadership who will say, come on guys, we need to do this within 30 days or 40 days or 50 days, because that is very much dependent on your business plan. The cost of the part is defined within the lead time. Now, as you're doing this, bear in mind, there is also a very high level supply chain also which you need to manage because of the material. Now, material is not always available within and around you. It is globally spread. You may need to buy raw material right from US, UK, and many other places to get that material back into the Asia and then start making those parts. Now, as you're doing your supply chain mapping, as you're thinking of the part production in your own shop floor, as you're thinking of the lead time, you need to also start looking at the logistics planning, because the part is going to travel whole across the globe, bear in mind, and you need to cover all aspects of this as you're doing the supply chain mapping. Now, this is what is one of the key thing. And supply chain mapping, I'm again talking about it very specifically because one activity or one step you have not done properly, the whole supply chain is going to collapse and you will not be able to deliver the part the way it is required or how when it is required to the customer. Now, all these activities have to happen all along side of the project execution. As you are building the facility, you will need to have all these discussions, all these brainstorming sessions. Now, I would strongly recommend and encourage you guys to have those sort of awareness. You will have to engage with the technical team. You will have to engage with the quality team. You will have to engage with the planning or the production team who is supposed to do all these activities. You need to facilitate all that discussion and ensure the brainstorming is telling you and giving you all the information what you need to establish a very strong and a robust supply chain. Now, one of this is what was all about the supply chain. Now, I'll not be able to talk a very detailed way, but let me start getting into the next level. That is the planning in the manufacturing world. Now, in planning in manufacturing world, one of the key thing in an aerospace industry is flexibility, speed, responsiveness, and the visibility and awareness. These are some of the key things which you need to have in mind as you're talking through the planning. Now, planning itself, if you for the ease of talking today, what I've done is to help you think better, to get your focus absolutely clear. I am trying to put this in front of you and tell you that you need to understand there are three layers of planning whenever you are doing the planning in a manufacturing world, and there is a very clear interdependency. Now, the shop floor planning and control by itself is a vast subject within itself. Then there is a blue square which I have drawn, where these are the support centers. Now, these are the supporting elements which has the primary responsibility to ensure the shop floor is running full time with no stoppages. That is what is the primary responsibility. Then comes the management team, which is again a bigger circle, where they are supposed to enable, they are supposed to give all what you need. Now, all that what you need, all that what you need to run the shop floor in a very right way, you need to understand. You need to talk about these things. You need to establish all these things right at the project phase. You cannot do this after having the shop floor being ready. As you're building the shop floor, you need to start thinking about it. You need to start brainstorming about this. Why I'm making it so obvious? Because these things are not easy. These things are not readily available. You need to create your own processes. You need to create your own system, because you are going to decide how you want to run the shop floor. You will have your own strategy. Now, I'll try to touch base on some of these processes. Now, within this, if you see, when you start planning your shop floor, the key thing would be your machine layout. You will need an industrial engineer there. You will need to also understand what should be your part flow process. Because if you see, I've also been talking about the supply chain mapping, the part flow. How, at what time the part will go out, at what time the part will come. How do you manage that? The smallest and the minute things, like the movement trolley, even that needs to be spoken about, even that needs to be managed. When I say the movement trolley, why it is so important? We have seen in aerospace industry that the parts getting damaged when the parts are not being taken care of when during the movement. So even the trolley in the shop floor needs to be planned. Even the trolley in the shop floor needs to be designed. Now, coming back to the visual management. Now, visual management is the key thing, and that is one focus which we need to have in the shop floor, because it is supposed to be the one of the efficient way of running the shop floor. You need to understand the resource structure. You need to understand the performance manage. What does performance management mean? What should be the KPI of your shop floor? You need to define all these things during the project and not after the project, because the definition of the KPI, or what KPI you want to drive, would decide also your approach towards the shop floor. The shop floor control system. Do you want to run your shop floor on an Excel sheet? Do you want to run a shop floor through an ERP? Do you want, what sort of data you want from your shop floor, so that you know the controls are there? Your operator is the key. What sort of skill you need in that shop floor, what sort of maintenance you need on these machines what you're buying, because these machines are quite an expensive machines, and unless it is maintained well, it will not give what it is supposed to be giving. Now, the one of the key thing as you're doing in the shop floor is the capacity utilization. Now, the consumable management, or the launch process, or the rerouting process, there are small little things, but I've tried to put some of these topics just for your understanding, to get to, for you to be aware how complex it is when you're setting up a shop floor or setting up a manufacturing center. Now, the supporting elements, again, I'm just going to remind you once again, I am today only talking about the planning and supply chain topics which is related into the manufacturing. There are several other functions, right from quality, the technical team, and many others who will be party into these discussions or the topics. Now, within planning, you need to also have a production planning tool. What sort of tool you need? What are the material management? What is the store strategy which you need to have? What is the purchasing? What is the vendor and contract management process which you want to have? How do you want to manage your customer? You need a logistics process and methods management, because in aerospace, the process and the method management is one of the key thing. How do you define your process? How do you update your process? How do you ensure that you have all the process what you need around you? Do you need a ERP management team? Because there will be a lot of updates going into the ERP every now and then. You will need obviously a HR or a people management. You need a load capacity management around you. You need invoicing and payments. Basically, there are n number of topics and things which you need to be planning right in the project phase itself, and you need to define all these elements, how it is going to work together, because these are all interdependent activities. and any one of the activities will not function, which means you're going to have an inefficient shop floor which you are supposed to manage. Now idea is to have a robust uh, shop floor when you are managing or when you are doing the project by itself, so that when as you start the operation, it will start giving results, it will start showing you profit the way it is supposed to be happening. Now one of the thing which I want to, again, one more point which I want to bring here is, please be aware the number of topics and subjects available in front of you. You can be master, or you can choose to be mastering in one of these subjects itself. I can easily tell you the number of jobs, number of topics which you can get from here, be it an industrial engineer or a maintenance engineer or a purchase engineer or a vendor engineer, industrial relationship officer, an IT guy, export import, SAP or a ERP, administration, the most important thing, the planning team. Now you can choose your subject within one particular shop floor. You will have so many roles, so many expertise which is required to run this entire thing. So that is one thing which again I would like to share here. Now this is what I wanted to share from a supply chain, from the projects, from the supply chain, and from the planning. Now, if you see in the whole talk which I am been giving or sharing which I'm giving, they are so integrated. If you fail to do one of this, your project is not a success, because you may have a factory standing there with all the machines, but if you have not addressed your planning and material management, if you have not addressed your supply chain management related activities, believe me, that is not a project which is successful. Because if you remember, the one thing which I said is to establish the capability. That is the core element of the project. It's not about just building a factory. It is about establishing a capability from a process point of view, from the operation ready point of view. For getting into the operations right from the day one, you need to be setting up all these things during the project phase itself. So that's one thing which I would like to remind you. And this is what I wanted to share from a supply chain and planning and the topics available within these areas. Now, going back to the potential of the Indian market and we as an Indians. Now, at the look of it, I can tell you with my experience and the exposure which I had all the way or entire career in India, you have n number of industries in India. You can choose. I have chosen already a few, and I've gone through and worked in those industries. And you can choose your industry where you want to do and what you want to do, or you want to work in different industry. You can choose. India is a very vast country, and there is a very big opportunity. I can tell you, especially with the programs like Make in India or Atmanirbhar, which is a recent one. I can tell you there is a more and more and lot coming in, and you youngsters have to get up for that to grab the opportunity. Me coming from an aviation industry and manufacturing industry, I just chose one or two things which I wanted to share here from an aviation industry. I'm not sure how many of you have observed. I can tell you for the last 5 years and 7 years, the airports are getting crowded, which means people are flying every day. You go to a airport on a Monday morning, I can tell you the airports are crowded more than a railway station or even a bus stand. That is how people are traveling, which means the aviation industry itself is growing. And you might be hearing already the India government is already investing a lot of money in the airports. Now, there is a plan for almost like 400 to 450 billion US dollar to be invested in India. And that's where the potential is. You might have also heard we are trying to also promote India for the MRO. This is for the aircraft service and repair work. Now that's going to get a lot of attention. That's going to create a lot of job. Now, manufacturing sector. as I've already told you, these three projects was one of the key projects which we delivered back in India in last about 3 to 5 years, and that's where I think so. Uh, Programs like Make in India actually supported it, and the many of our primary suppliers came with the thought that they wanted to get into aerospace as well, and they wanted to do make a difference out of it. And that is where I believe, I think so, there is going to be more and more opportunity. There's going to be more and more manufacturing centers, and we need to be ready for it. Now, what are the things which I would like to focus here? Then that is where you'll have to be more giving the attention. Now, one of the key thing which is missing is the skills in India, because I personally feel somewhere we lose focus on the training or the improving our skill. Though you need to be giving importance to skill development, and you need to believe some of things, because one of the key thing from Indian culture point of view, we somehow don't want to follow process. We are not very used to following processes. The classic example is traffic in India. We don't want to follow traffic rules. That is where some of the global companies have a hesitancy about India, because we feel we are expert as soon as we start. We do not intend to learn through the process. We feel we always have a plan B. We believe in Jugaad. That is where some of the failures from Indian point of view. So, one of the thing which I'm going to urge to you youngsters are, please do not follow the route. That particular route is very dangerous. I can give you an example. In my particular experience in Rolls-Royce, I walked into a shop floor, and I have personally, along with my team, scrapped at least about 2,000 parts in a shop floor, calling all the operators on the floor. We took a grinding wheel and scrapped every part in front of their own eyes, because one particular process was deviated by one particular operator. That is absolutely not allowed in the aerospace, because we need to be very clear. Everybody and everybody in the industry has to follow the process. Now, that's how we are trying to bring the change in the culture. And believe me, we have done a massive improvement, especially within the Rolls-Royce supply chain. I'm proud of it, because when I started my career in Rolls-Royce, we had about 10 to 15 or 20 parts being shipped out or sent to Rolls-Royce UK for the assembly. Today, there are 2,000 plus parts going out from India. Now, is that enough? No, it's not enough. There are still further opportunities and potential in the market. Problem is, we lack that skill. We lack that passion towards driving that. So that is what I will help you, and I'll encourage you to do that more and more. Now, a bit of career, which I said I will, which I said I will share. What does career mean? Career is about education, career is about motivation, career is about inspiration, creativity, partnership, and accuracy. When you have all these elements working together, believe me, you are going to have a good career. Please do not have a doubt about it at all. But I'm going to very clearly tell you, these are the most important things. Only your education is not going to get you a career. Do you have enough motivation inside you? Many a times we try to get motivation, or we try to find motivation outside. Why you yourself can have your own motivation? How, what is the inspiration? There are several stories around you. Please get inspired through them. You can be creative, because we are looking for new development. We are looking for new ideas and thoughts. You can try to partner with few people and try to make a career. You need to be absolutely accurate in what you're trying to do. Try to be perfect in what you want to do. That's how you can make a career. And in a very simple way, I try to put no grow flow method. Now this is one of the approach and method we follow even within Rolls-Royce. Now what is no grow flow? Basically, if you see, you need to have that urge to know. Now understanding your own personal strength, understanding your motivation, your career goal is one of the key thing. Nobody else is going to come and tell you what should be your career. You should know what is your career, what is your strength, what is that you want to do, and try to have a clear picture about that possible opportunities. Now why did I share so many of these topics available around you, either in supply chain or either in the manufacturing industry? Because there are several opportunities. Problem is, when I start looking for a job, I try to look for one particular sector, but we fail to see many things which is available around us. Now that's the reason I've tried to bring in some of these elements for you to understand how much of opportunities are available. If you see the supply chain itself, which I demonstrated in front of you today, I spoke about only one particular part has so much of opportunity. Now imagine when I am supposed to create 30 or 40,000 parts, or I'm supposed to create 2 crore parts of, how much opportunities are available. So understand what is that you want, have a very clear goal, and then start working towards it. Now, from a grow point of view, be clear about what experiences and competencies. Why I am saying many times people will have a goal, but they are not ready to take the steps what is required. You will have to first gain experience before you want to reach a goal. It cannot happen overnight. The success will not come overnight. The more you acquire experience, the more you develop and create competences, believe me, the more the chances of you achieving your goal. That's a fact, and my own story is a classic example. The flow, why you should have a flow, putting a plan, because that's the most important thing. You need to realize in next 3 years where you want to be. You need to understand, or you need to make a clear plan what you want to be in next 3 years, what you want to be in 5 years. Now sometimes it may not happen, but it doesn't mean that it will not happen. You need to see, is your approach wrong, where you're going wrong, to go there or to reach that particular point, what you need to do. The idea is to continuously keep flowing. That is what will get you the success. Now in that approach, what will also happen is you're continuously gaining knowledge, you're continuously gaining experiences. Now many times one of the thing which we try to do is we always try to think vertical. No, you need to also think horizontal. Basically, when I say horizontal, you need to also grow your knowledge breadth wise. Basically, not only try to understand one particular topic, it's about you understanding the whole scenarios. Now if you refer back to my slides in the previous one, unless I know about all those topics, I will not be able to do a project. Now how do I know that so many topics? I'll have to work on those topics. I'll have to become a planner, I'll have to become something else. I'll have to accumulate those experiences and competencies and the knowledge. Then when you bundle it together, I believe you are successful and you can be successful. I just want to give you my experience. In my 23 years of work experience, I have worked in 9 different companies, 5 different industries and products, be it steel industry, be it aerospace, and be it IT or even the oil and gas. I have handled various products. Now, doesn't mean that I have done only the managerial role. I've become a manager very recently, or last 5 to 6 years back. But during the entire my career, I've grown through my career, which also gave me an opportunity to learn at various levels, right from sales planning assistant to the project manager. Today I'm sitting here as a Asia Pacific lead planning manager. But it would have not been easy, or it is not easy today, if I had not done all that roles, because by doing all that roles, it gives me an opportunity to understand the ground level issues, so that today I am able to fix those issues. Today I am able to address those issues and help the organization to keep moving. That's what the career, the company gets something from me, I get something from the career. It's a mutual win-win situation. Now that is where I would encourage for every one of you, do not hesitate to work at the ground level. If the company or if the companies which you attend interview do not have any system or process, do not hesitate. Don't, it is an opportunity for you to create one. In that creating time, you will also learn. So please do, I would strongly recommend for you to do various roles and even change some industries. It will give you an exposure. Your breadth of the knowledge will keep increasing, and that will help you to understand your actual strength. Because the strength which you may feel, or if you have understood something in the beginning, may be different at the end of 3 years or 5 years if you have changed different roles and the industries. So this is what I would like to give you as a tip from a career point of view. Now, I hope with the limited time I had to share, I'm able to touch some of these core elements within aerospace and manufacturing, and the opportunities available or the topics and subjects available in these particular industries for you to look at as you start coming out from your graduation. And there is an enormous opportunities back in India, and with all the new programs, I think so we are going to have a fantastic period in next couple of years. And be, you as a youngsters, I think so you need to be ready for it. You need to start mentoring, you need to start really making yourself available for to grab that opportunity and make India more and more successful. So that's how I would end this session. Okay, so this is what I had to share, and we are ready for your questions. And I will leave to the Fortis team to see how they want to take your questions. I will try answering few of them, and then we can start talking again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful. We have many takeaway. It was very wonderful listening to all your talk. Like, thank you so much, sir. To all the participants, all your questions are welcome. Like, you can ask in the chat, sir. The first question is asked by Sriram Karti. As
Yeah.
IT persons, can we learn chemistry related sections?
Okay. Now, for example, if the way I'll put my personal experiences. Now, if you want to, if you are in an IT industry and if you want to excel in an IT industry, and somewhere down the line, if you see even a chemical industry would be using some of these IT things. Now, you having the core subject knowledge of a chemistry, how it behaves and what it does, you sitting there as an IT guy, maybe as a programmer, I can tell you, you will be more successful and more faster in able to understand that, because you already know what is chemical and how it can manage and how it needs to be handled from a software point of view also. Now, there's no harm in learning. Anything what you learn during the period is not going to go waste at all. That is how I see. Somewhere down the line it will be useful and you can make a benefit out of it. In fact, you will get an advantage out of it as well if you end up being in a chemical industry doing an IT work, or you are supporting an IT project which is catering into a chemical industry. You never know. So go on, don't worry, don't hesitate. If you find chemical is your interest and your IT is your interest, there could be a point where it is working with each other as well. So don't hesitate. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Next question is by Chetan Shestra. He have asked, what is standalone program?
Right. So um, basically what will happen is a program can be having a specific objective. It might have multiple projects within that. Now, if you see as an organization, there will be some programs or projects which is interlinked, but some program, for example, I could also simply say I want to exit a particular supplier. Now that exit of a supplier can be attributed as a project or with a program, because it may have multiple commodities within that which I want have to move out from there. Now that is one of the thing which you may have to consider. Now within that again, because it is not interlinked with the other strategy of the organization, so it can be one of its kind basically within that.
Thank you, sir. Next question is by Palash Sharma. He have asked, so how are you seeing that the companies moving out China and seeing India as an alternative?
Okay, interesting. Because okay, um it's a good start, I would say. And personally, having seen China for I've been coming in and out to China for the last 1.5 year, and from January I've been stationed here, trying to manage some of the strategic activities what Rolls-Royce is doing here in this region. Now me coming here and somebody selecting me all the way from India to come and manage something here, believe me, I think so we Indians have a skill, isn't it? So that itself proves that something is missing here, and maybe we Indians have that. So the answer to your question is yes, it's a brilliant thing which is we are thinking, started to think. But believe me, we all need to have that patience. As I also told you, we need to cultivate that competencies which we need to have as well. One of the key difference, having seen many of the Asia Pacific, if you see the countries like Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, or even China, it is very easy here. When I tell when I walk into a supplier, I tell them, look here guys, this is how we need to do. Believe me, after 6 months or 1 year, when I go again, they are just doing the same thing, because that is what they are used to. They will follow the process. Whereas in India supply chain, I go and tell after 1 or 2 months, when I go and tell check on them, they would have already changed without telling me. These are some of the things which we need to change. The changing of Indian culture in the manufacturing sector is one of the key thing. Somewhere we don't give we don't appreciate following the process. We don't really worry about the quality of the part or the activity or the action which we take. I think so I would strongly say to focus on these two things, and I can tell you we are ready. As of now, we need to get ready for it for surely. There's no way I can say yes we are fully ready. Yes, we can do it. It is not an impossible thing, and we are much more capable as a country and as a Indians, I can tell you that. But only thing is a lack of awareness or seriousness in a couple of things is something which is holding us back. We need to give up that. We need to change our culture. We need to change some of our behaviors in the work which we have. I think so then we will get there, no doubt about it. And I think so there is a full on opportunity, I can say, I can confirm that with what I have seen suppliers back in India and even other regions. Thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
hope I have
Hoping
answered.
for the yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And the next question is how to know or get enough knowledge or experience in a specific product or project within a period of time, sir.
What's the whole rush about it? I'll ask the other way, isn't it? So
Yes.
you're young, and I would say have the patience. Yes, sometimes what happens is we go behind money, we go behind success, and we want to achieve it faster. I know somewhere the speed is important. We need to have that. The only way is, if you want to learn fast, just get on and do it. Just do it and get hands-on experience. Having hands-on experience is one of the fastest way of learning. You can go to n number of courses, you can attend n number of sessions or classes. I can tell you it is all theoretical in nature. It may not always be the same approach when you actually practically do it. So I would encourage all of you, whenever you have an opportunity, do not even, you need not even wait for a graduation to get complete, isn't it? You can go and help some of your relative or friends who already has running some business. Get involved there, see how the business operates, what is that they do, how they operate. And again, bear in mind, I think so you need to start doing that now. Don't even have, you need not wait for your graduation to get complete. Use every opportunity to get involved and in some of these activities which you want to learn, and then start learning practical way. And then you go back and sit in the class and the courses. I can tell you, you will be much more be able to connect back to that story, because you have already have the hands on. When the professor or the teacher is telling you something, you can easily understand what they mean by it. Otherwise you are just listening, you are not able to really understand that. But when you have some hands on experience and then go and do some courses or anything to fast track that learning, you will be able to better connect it. That's how, what I would suggest. Yeah, next one.
Okay, so that was nice. The next question is, sir, what is the difference between project management and product management?
Okay, generally what happens in a very um, uh, industrial norms, project, again, as I said, there's a lot of activities involved. There is, it is almost like a techno commercial, whereas product management or a product manager can be very technical in nature. He or she might be in the technical arena. So that is how, because it is again to a specific particular product. Whereas in a project management, what happens, you are almost like a jack of all. You are supposed to know everything, including the technical element. Now you may not be the expert in that particular commodity or a product, but you need to understand as a project manager what goes in and what comes out. So in an input and output, you should be able to understand. So that's bit of a difference for you. The product manager could be more of a particular product expertise, whereas in a project management, you are almost like a jack of all, where you are trying to do every activity. You are a multitasking person there. That's a bit of a difference. Okay.
Yes, sir, that was nice. Like, I have a question, sir.
Go
Like,
on.
have you ever felt sometimes when too low, or like when you wanted to know something, you were not getting to know it, or you desperately wanted to do something and you were not able to do? At that time, what was that which was motivating you behind, sir? Like, what
I
was
can.
that motivation spark?
Okay, it's a good question. If, that happens even today after 23 years or 20 years plus years of experience. Okay, don't worry. So it keeps happening, and every time. Now, what keeps us moving, or what keeps me moving personally, is the passion towards the work and the goal or the position which I want to reach or what I want to achieve. That is what drives me. That is what helps me to keep doing different things in a different way. Now, these are some of the things which you need to also be aware. That is why I was referring back to one of the topic which I said, many people look for motivation from outside. Why do you need motivation from an outside? If you have your own goal, if you have your own passion towards what you want to do, I think so that itself will keep you moving every day, every now and then. Yes, there are lows in many times, and it maybe it keeps hitting you every now and then. But I think so you need to pull up yourself into that situation. You need to think of the big picture. You are supposed to be successful. Every human being in this world are supposed to be successful. Every human being in the world is powerful. That is where we keep saying, or I keep telling everybody is powerful. It is only that we underestimate our own things. That is what stops you. So let's not do that. Instead, I think so I would say, just believe in yourself that you are powerful and you can be successful as well. And you need to just understand what's your goal, what is that you want to do. Your ways and approaches and routes can be different to meet those goals. You need not be following somebody else approach to reach a point where that person has reached. You may have your own path, so try doing that. I hope that helps.
Yes, sir, that was amazing. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Um, sir, I think it's time we shall wind up.
right. Okay, great. Thank you
Thank you
again.
so.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity. I hope I was able to share some of my experience. I hope it can be useful for the people who have attended this. And any questions, if you have, please divert through the team, and I will see how best I can answer. And I'll do my best and try to give you some answers. Great. Thank you once again.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
very much, sir.
Thank
Thank
Yeah,
you.
go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Rohit, for making us to listen to such wonderful person. Um, thank
Thank
you,
you.
all the team members of IFortis behind. Yes, Rohit.
Yeah, I request all the participants to fill the feedback link so that we can have a track on the for the session.
Also, participants, if you have any other queries, any other questions you wanted to know, you can enter in that feedback link. We'll try to get you the answers.
Thank you very much for your time, sir.